You're a hero with no memory thrown into an unknown world of dangers. You must fight your way through the world to discover your true identity, whether you like it or not. I'm Evin from MindMine, and these are my initial impressions of 3000th Duel by Neopopcorn. Like that of Dark Souls, you enter the world not knowing who or what you are, but only that you've come back from the dead. You'll travel through the world fighting enemies, solving puzzles, and learning from your mistakes to unlock the mysteries of the past. Over time, you'll reveal memories that give you more insight to the world, and unlock abilities to help you grow stronger so you can face tougher enemies. As it is Souls-like, you'll have to discover statues where you can level up and save your progress. If you die, you'll start back at the last save point and you'll have to fight through enemies again until you get back to your place of death. When you arrive to that point, you'll notice a floating purple ball. If you destroy the ball, it gives you back your karma, which is used for increasing your stats. The one thing though that I find strange is that the floating ball of karma can actually do damage to you. It doesn't make much sense, and it seems to only be placed as an annoyance, thus slightly inflating difficulty just for difficulty's sake. The overall art style is a bit cartoonish, but well done. I enjoyed it a lot as it made things visually pleasing, even in a dark world. The animations for attacks ranged from standard to really creative. One of my favorite animations was from a skeleton that carried a massive saber and held fire in his chest. There were times where he stabbed himself to release this AoE fire out toward you. The enemies had interesting designs, and they tended to vary from each other, which kept things really interesting if you find yourself fighting multiple enemies at once. Solo fights, though, felt a bit repetitive after a bit of time, as enemies did very limited actions. On top of the limited actions, some enemies had higher HP, which led to a basic dance of slashing, dashing, slashing, dashing, slashing, and more slashing. It isn't terrible in the beginning, but over time does make things a bit repetitive. I also noticed times where enemies would stand still and not realize I was attacking them until the last moment. The boss fights felt standard. They start with a high health pool, hit very hard, have long reach, and introduce a new attack mechanic when you get them to a certain level of HP. I didn't find the bosses to be too terribly difficult. What was difficult was dealing with two aspects of the game that reached maximum annoyance during boss fights. The first aspect is the body block damage. If you bump into an enemy, you'll take damage and they won't. With certain fights, especially with the size of the bosses, it made it a constant DOT or damage over time, making the fights more annoying than fun. Eventually, you do unlock skills that make it so you take less body block damage and that you take no damage when dashing through enemies. But honestly, having these as unlockable skills just feels like artificial difficulty being added to the game and padding to the skill tree. Also, the damage immunity dash skill isn't great against bosses a lot of the time, as the bosses can be so wide that your dash will end before you fully pass them, thus having you take even more body block damage. The second aspect is the lack of proper air mobility. You can dash and slide when you're on the ground, but when you start playing, you don't have an aerial dash. This makes it so you can't properly get around enemies without taking more body block damage. This then pushes you into a corner where all you can do is spam your attack buttons until the enemy hopefully dies before you do. The world is interesting, and there is a nice blend of concepts, but unfortunately, 3000th Duel does tend to get in its own way. Overall, I appreciate the developer for the work they've done. It's an interesting indie, Souls-like action platformer that you could tell had a lot of work put into it. This alone makes me very interested to see what else Neopopcorn can create in the future. If you want to find out more about 3000th Duel, make sure to click the link in the description section of this video. Thanks for joining us in the world of 3000th Duel. If you've liked what you've seen or heard, make sure to subscribe and click the notification icon to be updated whenever a new episode gets released here at MindMine.